Hello and welcome to aidbees, everybody. Today we are celebrating Teachers' Day for 2023, and we have a very brilliant panel today with us. We have Dr. Amrita Vohra, Mr. Abhishek Bagchi, and Mr. Kanak Gupta with us. We are discussing on a very important topic today, that is the need and the requirement of kindness and empathy for modern day classrooms and modern day teachers. And a question that rises for this very importantly is that, do modern teachers today, or do modern day teachers have the feeling of empathy and kindness within the classroom? Before we move on, I would like to give very brief introductions of our panelists today. We have Dr. Amrita Vohra with us. Welcome, ma'am. Welcome to APs. She is the Director of Education at GEMS India, and she is a very renowned educationist and has worked across many schools with around 15 years of experience. She also holds a PhD in English from Lucknow University, and she's a skilled teacher in education management professional. And we're really fortunate to have you here, Dr. Amrita. Thank you so much for joining in. You're on mute. I think all of you can unmute, that's okay. We also have Mr. Kanak Gupta with us. He is the director of St. M.R. Jaipuria Schools. He has been an educationist with over 15 years of experience. He's also an author and playwright, and also a theatrician. So theater, playwriting, and activism and authorship goes on his veins. And we're really proud to have you here. He's done an MBA from Purdue University, and he currently works as the director of Jaipuria Schools. Sir, welcome to aidbees, and we're really glad to have you.
Thanks, Ashutosh. Thanks, aidbees, for having us here.
Thank you. We also have Mr. Abhishek Bagchi with us. He is the Director of Academics of World Peace Schools, which works around Pune, Maharashtra. And he's managed academics since the last 10 plus years, and he has a total experience of more than 20 years. His book on computer applications in ICSE has been published by Macmillan, and so he's a published author with regards to curriculum. And he is involved professionally into education, leadership management, and coaching. Abhishek ji, welcome to aidbees.
Thank you, Ashutosh, and thank you, aidbees.
We're really glad to have all of you here. So kicking off this discussion by the question, or the elephant in the room, essentially, we're talking about a definition of a modern day classroom here. So Abhishek ji, we'll start with you. Do you think the definition of the modern day classroom has changed over the years? What does it look like to you now at present?
Okay, so modern day classroom changed over the years. Maybe few instances, yes, but overall, like if you look at all the schools all over India, and if you're considering our country specifically, then I would say no, it's the same structure most of the places. There can be, some schools, some small percentage of schools who are doing some kind of research, and they are trying out some new methods. But overall, no, it's the same non-interactive classroom which we found in most of the places, which is, like we have to admit that. Having said that, yes, there are a lot of talk going on, and people, thanks to NCF, thanks to NEP, because all the other schools, like all schools, are trying to make some kind of changes. They are understanding the requirement of it. So it requires all the stakeholders to take part in this kind of, paradigm shift that we are talking about. But most importantly, what we have to think is like, what we are looking at. Like, there is not a single school who actually trying to ensure the students' learning, right? So that's a priority. There can be difference of opinions. Then someone can say that, okay, student learning still happens to, even there is a recent research I was, going through, which says that, some of the inquiry-based learning and something in some of the classes are a little overhyped. Even sometimes the one-way lecture methods also work better. So it's coming from McKinsey, like it's not a normal research. So there are a lot of debates. So we need to find out the right balance. That's the most important thing. And we need to, when we talk about personalized learning, which is actually the in thing we all are talking about, along with personalization of learning, we should also think about democratization, because it's not only personalization which will help. Because if you're talking about personalization, on what basis we are talking about personalization? If we believe that a classroom will get converted into, requirements of different learner profiles, so who is deciding the learner profile? What is the data? What kind of data we are looking at? What is the context of the data? Who is doing the analysis? So when these kind of questions we need to ask ourselves before we are actually trying to change the classroom. It's better to do it properly than not to do it at all. Like that's my opinion here. So yes, definitely the classroom structure is changing. And but we need to be a little bit careful here, because while doing experiment, we should not end up doing it wrong. That's my point.
Right. Dr. Amrita, do you have any additional thoughts to that with regards to how we imagine the modern day classroom and teachers today?
I will just take it forward from where Abhishek left. And I find the idea very intriguing when he actually questions what is it, what is the data, who is analyzing it, and where and how are we actually collating it and collecting it from? How credible is it? Whatever new age ideas which are doing the rounds, what exactly do they mean and how credible is it? Because research can sometimes say exactly the opposite of what may be being called maybe progressive, and so on and so forth. So the OECD Learning Compass, the latest one, the report actually begins with this line that it is often said and often quoted, and we all have heard Peter Drucker about it: what gets measured gets treasured. But this compass or learning compass is actually about what cannot get measured needs to be treasured much more in the classroom.
Wonderful.
Right? So it is the world's organization that does the TIMSS and PISA assessment, and that begins its most important critical learning compass on education with this thought. And yes, there are, so the very topic of today's discussion, empathy and kindness in the classroom, the SEL aspects or social emotional learning aspects are the most critical. Nothing taught us better than the pandemic. And I think it just brought it out on the fore. And yet again, it'll be a very big mistake for all of us if we go back to the classroom that was keeping SEL as something, yes, that happened, but at the periphery. It has to come to the center of education, understand. It cannot be, okay, these are the core subjects we study, and so we will do a life skills lesson also, or a moral science lesson also, or, whatever we may call it. That is where we will teach, okay, you know what, you should speak the truth, you should be kind, you should be, etc., etc. We cannot, we never learned it like that, nor can any other generation of children. No one ever has, no one ever will. The only way social emotional learning is, it can be imbibed, it can be acquired, and it is acquired by children because they, as Vygotsky puts it, they grow into the intellectual character of the environment around them. And that environment we create. It's not just the teacher. Teacher is the most important in that environment, definitely, because human beings are the models and they give that sense of motivation. But when they don't think, how do I motivate this child? How do I motivate this child? But when they think instead, how do I ensure that that intrinsic motivation to learn that is within this child is nurtured even better? Everything will get personalized automatically if every teacher starts thinking that way. Because that motivation is actually inbuilt in every child. So that, with that, and bringing it to the center, the whole environment is a teacher. How are we using it as a tool, whether we bring in technology or whether we use something as simple as a leaf or a simple piece of paper or the chalkboard, whatever, irrespective of the tool. How are we actually using that environment to become vibrant enough for that child to feel that sense of intrinsic motivation? Okay, I want to do this, and so I'll do it.
Correct.
So that is where I think the classroom is evolving, changing. The wall you see behind me is all done by children. where they've put in their ideas. The environment has to be theirs to create.
Right.
Then begins
So,
inspiring anything else.
great. I totally agree with that, that there is a changing wave of, classrooms and how we imagine it, given with this social and emotional learning. Kanakji, what do you think is the role of an educator in this spectrum that both Abhishek and Amrita ji have pointed out? What do you think is the role of an educator in this particular regard?
I think, I'm so glad that we are talking about this, and both Dr. Amrita, Dr. Abhishek laid out the foundation very well. The role of the educator, I think, needs to firstly be understood. That, I don't think that most of us understand the role of the educator, and that is where we get lost and we get so wrong. We feel that the role of the educator is to ensure that teaching, learning happens in the classrooms or at schools. That is not the role of the educator. An educator is a society builder, it's a nation builder. She needs to have been empowered to go ahead and be progressive about it. You don't need to only look at marks. You don't only need to look at that lesson plans are transacted in the classroom. That is not the role of an educator. So there's a much, much larger role. Wanted to say that. The other thing is that, we need to understand where we're coming from. It's good to be futuristic sometimes, but, probably the three of us here you're speaking to, we've come to that particular age where we've started reflecting a lot as well over the last few years. So it's always good to look back as well, as where we're coming from. We're coming from an education system which was designed to create a lot of officers and babus. And while there is a lot of merit in communal learning, but there we also need to understand that to be enterprising and to be sort of leaders in the, we need to do something different. The learning parts will always be taken care of. It's the emotional part of it. Unless we focus on that, it's going to be an irreversible travesty. And this is where the role of the educator is the most important one, to be the anchor, uh, to be the one sort of shock absorber for a generation of children who actually don't know exactly what's going to happen with technology progressing the way it is, the kind of upheavals that have happened. It's not simple. It's not simple for you and me as full-grown adults. Trust you me, that it's not simple for the children at all. So first of all, acceptance is very important on that aspect as well. I see the role of educator being more towards guiding, being mentors, being facilitators, being sort of partners in crime to steal from literature for children to progress ahead.
Right.
There is long gone is the time when you're looking at the educator just to fill in the PTM sheets and tell the parent, your student, your child is not good in mathematics, so please beat up your child more because he has to get 100 on 100 in mathematics, and he might be very good in English, but no, I don't need you to focus on English. That has to change.
This reminds me very aptly and appropriately so, Kanakji. This reminds me of this concept that keeps going on in classrooms of the first bencher and the last bencher, which is to say that, so let's start with Abhishek sir again. The idea of this first bencher and last bencher. I'm sure all three of you must have come across as educators in this spectrum of education with the whole theory of, okay, if you're a topper, you're supposed to be the first bencher. If you're not so good, maybe the middle benches, or if you're completely a gone case, according to what conventionals say, if you're a completely gone case, you're in the backbench. So, Abhishek ji, what's your thought with regards to this theory of first and last benchers?
It's very interesting because I was always a second last bencher in my school, like not the last bencher. And I purposefully chose the second last bench because, like not to be tagged as a last bencher, as well as like I can do whatever that's last benchers are doing, so yes, these are my understand one thing. These are all mindsets that we are, even it is happening today. Like if one student is difficult to handle, then the teachers have a tendency to send him to the last bench. Like that kind of mindset always comes in. And even many a times we can see that the last benchers, and even the people who are sitting at the back, they have their own world. They create their own world. Many a times, if you put a introvert into a last bench, they will have a fantastic time. Trust me, because like again, when I often say that collaboration and all those things are very good, but they are little bit overhyped in our education system. when Amrita ma'am is talking about creating an environment, creating an ecosystem, I would rather go one step further, and I would say that let us understand, taking even what Kanak has said, like creating an educator who is actually going to the depth of the matter. So I would rather prefer an educator who can actually encourage a student to have an internal emotional journey, right? That is extremely important, because, and these last benchers, they have got that opportunity. First bencher, there is a problem that you are always in the, attention. So you cannot go into your internal journey. So as a last bencher, I can tell you my, version of the story. I had that opportunity many a time when the class is going on, to go into that internal journey, to ask those questions which may be not possible to ask when I'm sitting on the first bench,
Right.
So those questions in even within friends, like passing on the question and discussing on that thing, so that inner journey of emotional journey is extremely important. And I believe that give us another opportunity, because, like when we talk about, a nation builder, a society builder, what kind of society, what kind of nation we are having now. So creating a fantastic ecosystem, everything like very good in our school ecosystem, where 6 to 7 hours a student will be, staying. That will be a kind of virtual reality for the student, right? And again, it will go back to a society which has got all kinds of, nasty things to look at. When you look at our news, like what is coming up, like what they're watching, what they're seeing, that's our society, right? Coming to them, like getting projected. So there is a tremendous problem here. Like we cannot just create an excellent ecosystem, as like Amrita ma'am was saying, and it's like a fantastic background she has. Like I was, about to appreciate that. And so where the students are really, really learning very good things from the teachers, from the peers. But the moment they go out of the school and the moment they go to the society, they have been dictated by the market. They have been dictated by the same thing. Today, there is a market dictated by 1% of the wealthy people. Tomorrow, there will be a 1% of the techie people with all the artificial intelligence. No, it's just that kind of change will happen, But what kind of internal journey that we are, preparing the students for, if that is taken care, then I think the students will actually be equipped with to handle this tremendously dynamic, changing world. And even no matter what kind of disruptions happening around them, they will be always ready to exchange their happiness with peace.
Right. Very interesting point that you mentioned, sir, about the internal journey of the students. And I think a teacher is, as we're celebrating Teachers' Day as well, a teacher becomes that carrier or that agent for that internal journey. So, Amrita ji, coming back to you on this internal journey, where do you place the onus of soft skills like empathy, compassion, kindness for these educators who are these agents for the children hence?
Very critical. Again, the teacher's own internal journey is equally important.
I agree.
Abhishek was pointing out. So yes, there's a lot of discussion always about the child, and yes, the child has to be in the center. In the school, we create a sort of safe space. As sir was trying to point out, that the child will go out also, and so will the teacher. Every day they do. If it's a day school. If it's a boarding, then you're still sort of keeping them a little away for a bit, and yet they will go out. But our job it is at school, our job it is to prepare them for life. That's what education is all about. And that life will, yes, be all over the place. It doesn't mean when you're creating a safe space for a child, it doesn't mean that you are creating a space which is totally free of obstacles, which is totally unnuanced, so to speak. It has its own set of challenges and nuances and expectations and all of that. Those will creep in because there are human beings working together. And the minute there are friends and people around, I think that is what was missed, not just by children, but also by teachers, all adults. The minute we were all working through, thanks to technology, we were all connecting online the way we are right now. We had classrooms, everything. But what was missing was that personal connection, that sense of coming back to your staff room and chit-chatting with your friends, all that was critical. We started something called gossip mornings and gossip evenings for teachers during the pandemic. And that was a big hit. Teachers would just want to come together in little groups to simply gossip. Tell families meeting है बहुत important है, school ने रखा है, but just have fun. That is something that we all so critically missed, and nobody wanted to go back once they were back in school, because that was there. So why can we not think of internal reflection and all this support mechanism for teachers also? That safe space for teachers is so critical. Thinking about teachers, like every day we have this little thing called the everyone has their own little coffee mug. It's not necessarily the one in which they have their coffee. For that they have other things, but they have a coffee mug at each table for the teachers. And everybody every morning ensures that they put 5 nice ideas, anything beautiful, anything good that they noticed about each other. At least for 5 people, they place something nice in their mug. Everybody picks up their own mug in the morning, and it's a feel-good factor. So there can be a whole lot of little ideas and thoughts and ways and so many strategies that can be done. But what is critical is that empathy and mindfulness and all of these, compassion, these have to be at the center in anything and everything that we do. How we talk, they have to be part of the culture. And when we say culture, anything in a school is driven by its culture.
Right.
Because from there it begins and pretty much ends.
Right.
Culture, is it a learning culture or is it a performance culture? What is it? Children are not a collection of percentages. Parents may see it in a certain way, society may see it in a certain way, tomorrow college application may see it in a different way. But what is the culture we are creating? Are we creating for everybody in the system, right? From the management to the teacher to every single employee to the security guard out there? Is it a learning culture or is it a performance culture? The minute it is a learning culture, that social emotional health and well-being of everyone is actually taken in the forefront. Are we using the term work all the time? Finish your homework. Are you on task? Finish. What is the language? The language really matters, because language really creates the way we think, the way we work, the way we function. And the research tells us that the word work is used 80% more often than the word learn or think in any classroom across the globe.
Correct.
So think about it. How much do we use that word? So we've created the idea of work. We've moved learning to this idea of work. It isn't work.
Right.
So,
And a very great observation with regards to how, even school managements can surround themselves around this idea of work or learning. Kanakji, I would like to draw from your personal experiences as well in terms of handling management or handling school managements in this regard. Where do you place the responsibility of the management in practicing kindness and empathy for teachers and students, so on and so forth? Where do you think that such techniques which can escalate kindness in schools, specifically the feeling of kindness, how do you place the onus on management for that?
We are all beings where we are conditioned a lot. We try to adapt a lot from each other. We try to see as to what the others are doing, and in spite of what a lot of us say, it's a lot of imitator philosophy that works even at leadership levels. Leadership levels are designations and not necessarily anything else. You're a leader at every level that you can be. So I'm glad that we are talking about culture, because I believe that role of a leader is setting culture. We're all matter of habit, everything that we do. So culture becomes very important. Communicating that culture is very important. Communicating and establishing a lot of practices for others to look up to and contribute to that becomes the role of the leader more than anything else. As management, it becomes important not only to look, it's not a top down. You cannot just say that management has to show kindness to someone who's working for them. That it doesn't work anymore. It's not the age-old archaic philosophy that's in existence. We are all collaborators. We are at par with each other, and we need to understand that it doesn't work as on a top-down approach at all. As management, you need to give that freedom. As management, you need to make sure that this thought is communicated to every person in the organization. As management, you need to ensure that people understand that this is a safe space to share feelings, to share their thoughts, to share initiatives. Emotion is not just about human emotions. Emotions is also about work at times. If I have a great idea or if I have a poor idea, when I share it with someone who's superior to me, I want to be validated. I need to have that understanding that someone is accepting of me or give me feedback on how to improve. That becomes the role of management, essentially to validate, to ensure that people have that space to grow themselves. My job as a leader is always to get out of everyone's way. My job as a leader is to ensure that everyone has their own path and they can reach that. And how can I support? So my most popular question to ask is, how can I help you? Because growing up, Ashutosh, I had this philosophy which was from many others that came in, that if you want to be smart, surround yourself by people who are smarter than you. So all my life I've done that. At times you feel really dumb that there's no such smart people around you, but that's how I've learned, that's how I've grown, and that's the only thing I keep doing. That I keep asking this question: is there anything I can help you with, and how do I get out of your way?
That's very, very motivating for a leader or for a management to begin with. It sets out an example. Mr. Bagchi, taking this conversation ahead and putting the value of kindness and empathy in all of it. As much as we would like to look at hard work or dedication or people doing multiple jobs or multiple things in the education space, we have noticed that also because of COVID, also because of the recent events that have come through, the value of empathy or compassion through little examples, even within the management space and within the teaching space, has become more and more important. So how do you see that thing or that essence of kindness growing into something fruitful?
Okay. So, absolutely, like COVID, yes, during the COVID times, we have seen that there are many people, when including, like, we were also part of the team. Like,
Right.
I remember, like, it's only 2 to 3 years back. I remember, one of my coordinator's mother expired because of COVID, and no one was, like, there to pick up her body. And so I took my car and picked her body and went to the Samshan Ghat. Like, you cannot go to the electric ones, like, there are separate areas where you can burn them. So those days where we understand the value of it, and then those, I think, I would take up that word compassion from you, because compassion without empathy without compassion is dangerous. So if you are creating some kind of environment inside of school where we are exposing the students towards empathy, and the students are actually developing that kind of skill of empathy, and if we do not take it to the compassion level, it can be an extremely painful and pathetic thing for the students and the teachers and everyone. So we need to make sure that if we are creating some kind of empathetic environment where, yes, we feel for each other, you use the word kindness, we feel for each other, but at the same time, there should be proper actions which is supporting your empathy or kindness, which you are actually trying to preach, like inside that environment. For example, we talking about, say, management, any kind of, and as I agree with Kanak, that everyone is a leader on their own rights. So I think the first and foremost thing that is required is, like, accept the mistakes of the teachers, accept the mistakes of the students, and don't just judge with each and every, like, I agree with Amrita ma'am, like, performance-based culture or learner-based culture. So the moment you send the message that, yes, each and every step of your will be judged, each and everything will be into your appraisal or mark sheet, then there is a problem. So you may be the most kind person as a kindest leader of the whole planet, but if you're doing that on ground, then there is a big problem starting there. So we have to be very careful on that we may have a very empathetic kind of mindset or kind of character, but at the same time we should convert them into actions, because that's also a very important job of a leader. because I agree that leaders, the primary job is to build the culture inside the organization. And while to build the culture, we need to form that bridge between the empathy and compassion also. Otherwise, it can be a very risky environment. It can be a risky, fragile, and I use the word painful, because one can go out of this safe zone with a lot of empathy and go out and then face a pathetic world where they will be, they can go into a depression. Many a times we have seen that the students were of very elite institutes with a lot of space of philosophical questions into that institutes. I'm not naming anyone, like any institute, but when they go out of the institute, when they go to the real world, they become extremely depressed and extremely, pessimistic. The reason behind, they have not learned to convert that empathy into compassion. That's the bridge that even leaders need to build, I think.
Right. Very rightly said. Also resonates with what Dr. Amrita just said about, having these small activities that connect and that, act as that connection to empathy and kindness for teachers. For example, the cup activity or the gossip sessions activity.
May I
Dr.
add
Yes.
one thing, Ashutosh, because like
Yes.
I'll be forgetting maybe afterwards. Like we should be also careful in bringing the critical thinking in it. It should not be a kind of some kind of taken for granted modality. It should not be in that particular area. Like we should have that place where the student should be able to ask questions, even whether actually. So imagine a situation, I always like give this reference. Imagine a situation when one person is stealing medicine from a mother because the person has not having any money. So what kind of modality are we going to be empathetic towards that person? Or so these questions need to be asked. Even like in our textbook, we give examples of the gratitude of Ekalavya. Should we give the example of gratitude of Ekalavya, or Ekalavya should be asking the questions to Dronacharya whether it is right or wrong? So these kind of discussion is also important when we are creating a culture of empathy inside our.
Very true indeed. Dr. Amrita, any more personal experiences with regards to implementing this action-based empathy and kindness? Because we've talked a lot about what should be done theoretically. We've also discussed many examples of what you have been doing in your schools, or what other schools have also been doing. But do you think there are certain steps that every teacher can follow to ensure that this kindness or this empathy or compassion is put to action in the classroom?
So I think there is a whole lot of things. First and foremost is that as a teacher, I think I started with that. It's important to think that, am I being able to ignite that intrinsic motivation in this learner? And it's a symbiotic relationship, learning what I'm learning and what someone else is learning. As a teacher, I am a partner in that learning. As a leader, I am again so beautifully Kanak put it that I ask them, how do I not get in the way and how can I help? I think that's exactly what the role of a teacher also is in the classroom. How do I not get in the way? And what really can I do? So asking not necessarily children that question, but yourself that question at all times. So that is something that's extremely critical. And engaging parents, very importantly, because very often in the school, yes, teachers create that environment, but the child goes home to a family which will say that, you know what, nothing doing, even if you don't like mathematics, you got to do it because XYZ. And you got to only study, or you got to take this subject only and not that, and so on and so forth. So those things happen. And or I'm not okay with this idea or sport that you want to pursue, and so on. So the child feels deterred in a whole lot of ways from a whole lot of directions. And everybody is right in their own way for their own rationale. But as a teacher, I think we also do the balancing act for the children. We also provide that sense of, okay, this is how you speak your mind. This is how you need to be able to manage those emotions that are flying high. We are dealing with teenagers or younger children. In both cases, they're struggling in so many multiple ways. Adults are also struggling to get today, but children equally always have and even more are. Children today are growing up amidst instant gratification. There is a whole lot that they are not learning naturally, which maybe a generation ago we were learning naturally. We knew the power of waiting it out, and a lot of perseverance we learned naturally. But and also a lot of emotional intelligence was built into it. A lot of things came naturally. I just remember the river was a natural go-to place for me as a child because of the city I was in. But to a child today, can we imagine that? Right? And there is so much power in all of these things which seem little but actually are not. Right from the air we breathe to everything around us is so different and is um, so less in terms of positive energy that we need to somehow or the other in our own way create a whole lot of that positive energy in whichever way possible. And if a child is able to regulate those emotions, there is definitely better attention, and better attention or concentration span naturally leads to better academic performance.
Absolutely.
So the parent also needs to see the importance of why emotional intelligence and all this effort towards mainstreaming emotional intelligence is so critical. Now,
Right.
all schools, I mean, CBSE also says holistic progress card and everything is being discussed, but all schools put in that since ages. They all put in that first page which talks about, all these other aspects about the child, right? That it's not about marks, it's about punctuality, it's about ensuring that I'm able to make friends, or I'm doing this all right, and so on and so forth. But the parent simply flips it through. It's not important, because somewhere the teacher is also probably putting in a subjective note there. So is the parent thinking, so nobody takes it seriously.
Right.
There is a whole lot of benchmarking or test batteries for that, which can be utilized. And if you utilize, I have seen it. If a child in a self-evaluation in one of those test batteries has written a never, this is something I never do. Actually, parents have read through it and have come and had long discussions with teachers. Instead of discussing marks, they've had long discussions. Why is my child written a never here? Actually, I think my child doesn't do this, my child does this, right? And then the teacher said, let the child, you can have your evaluation, let the child have theirs, and so on and so forth. It became important because
Right.
the idea that this is objective came in, and that really has gone a long way in helping us. So you said some strategies we've employed. I mean, we've all been, I'm sure, putting in a whole lot of strategies, but I want to share here what worked well for us. The minute we put in a very objective certified test battery there, where the child is doing some self-evaluation and then taking ownership in terms of going through it. Okay, yeah, this is the skill. I genuinely reflecting upon it through the support of that system, and saying, yeah, okay, yeah, I do find this one tough. Okay, why? It's not about learning. It's actually about learning what to learn, how to learn, and so not so much what the people will give you, but
Right.
how. Right? So it's very critical. Okay, this is why I'm struggling here. So this is what I can do about it. When the child is able to identify and share that with a parent, with a teacher, with any responsible adult or a peer around them, that is when our job is really begun. It's
That's
not,
that
but
that's
begun.
insightful, actually. That's where all the energy also should go with this regard, right? Kanakji, continuing this discussion only, I would like to hear from you, like any personal examples or any of teachers or any of students that you might have come across where you saw that this action of turning empathy, kindness, and compassion into actionable like elements in the class, where you've seen that happening in real life. Anything that you'd like to share with our audience?
So, see, the reality tells us that, one of the biggest problems is the lack of awareness towards mental, emotional, social issues, we generally tend to take it for granted. We learn about stress management when we start working, and then we struggle to balance relationships, social life, finances, family. We struggle because we learn how to manage our emotions much later in life. And as kids, we are completely unaware of it unless we have someone who can actually encourage us to share our emotions. And it's an important element for an educator to do as well. We tend not to pay attention to understanding oneself and what's in a person's mind, in a person's heart. And unless you provide that kind of experience, that kind of freedom to educators, to students, you will not be able to develop an ecosystem which is progressive. I'll share with you my example. Growing up, I was an absolute shy kid. Your stereotypical, last bencher who probably did well in academics and sports and in the creative arts as well, but was always shy and had a stutter, had a stammer. Realized that writing was tending towards this dyslexia, not dyslexic, but tending towards. And it was my teachers who put me on stage and said that you got to do this. And one thing led to the other with their encouragement. If it wasn't for my teachers, I would have never become an actor, would have never created theatrician, would have never become an educator. Education, teaching is, there's a lot of performing arts in education, would have never gotten into research, would have never become an educator. It would have never happened. So you always connect the dots looking back. It's easier to look back and connect the dots, yes, but you always connect the dots. It's important to do that. So looking back, my school, my teachers, and most importantly, I think what Dr. Amrita was saying, the parents, at least, I remember my friends and my batchmates, throughout, the parents were very accepting. And it was not reverence of the school, but it was genuine understanding that, the school is trying to do something progressive. And then you support. I remember my parents speaking to the school on a regular basis. I remember going and talking, and at that time we did not have as much of technology, but I remember my parents going to the school and talking to the teachers, not being prescriptive, not being advisory, not telling my school that this is what you need to do. Instead, the conversation used to be, this is your child, you tell us what do we need to do to support your child at home. What do we need to do? What is the kind of environment we need to create? So it's probably the role of the teachers over there. But yeah, in my experience, unless the teachers would have identified that this shy kid needs to speak, I wouldn't have been able to do anything in my life. So that is the importance of a teacher's contribution to a person's life.
That's very, very motivating indeed, and also very interesting to see how we sort of change the modern day teaching onus from training or from educating to actually being able to learn as individuals, to be able to learn learn kindness, learn empathy, or learn rather just soft skills in life, right? This has been a wonderful discussion, and we're actually slightly running out of time. So before we end this discussion up, and since we're approaching Teachers' Day as well, I would like to go to each of you to get your thoughts on, how can teachers be kinder, or how can teachers make sure that kindness is practiced across classrooms? We'll start with Abhishek ji, and then we'll quickly wrap up this discussion after yours. So what do you think that, yeah.
So if you want like a message going to the teachers, like definitely, again, action points are very, very important, but they have to understand one thing, that this is not an easy profession. We have to understand that, so all teachers listening to us at this present moment, please understand that this is probably, not probably, I can go for a debate with anyone, the most difficult profession in the world if you're a good teacher, but this is the easiest profession if you're a bad teacher. So you need to understand both these things, and then you have to plan whatever you are doing, whatever you're planning. So if you really, really consider that this is a profession for you, there are thousands and thousands of professions in the world, right? You can choose any one of them. If you're trying to choose profession, whether it is accidentally or deliberately, then you have to understand this is the most difficult profession you're choosing. And there are a lot of, consequences that you need to, go through. Like I was a programmer, I become a teacher, partly accidentally, partly deliberately. That's a different story. But the moment I become there as a teacher, then I understood that like this is a tremendous challenge that I've taken, like taken up. And then the realization came. I will request all the teachers to go through that realization, to make mentors, discuss with other people who can actually guide you, and form the right perspective of understanding that yes, this is not an easy profession to handle. So you need to be a real superstar with all the 5 or 6 stones that Thanos was having, and so on, and become a real superstar and superhero of this planet.
Great. Amrita ji, would you like to continue on that side of question?
I will just add to what Mr. Bagchi already said. If the Prime Minister or the President commit a mistake, say something incorrectly in a national address, it would be ignored, okay, largely. But if a teacher makes one little grammatical error or a misprint somewhere, that is hugely pointed out because it genuinely impacts so many lives. Yes, it is indeed the toughest profession to be in. You are all the time someone who's modeling it for a whole lot of people, modeling what kindness is, what empathy is, what being a good human being actually is. You are modeling the idea that one should never be a volunteer victim. You have to believe in, if it is to be, it is up to me. And no matter what, make it happen. And every single day within a school throws so many challenges at a teacher that the teacher makes this happen every single day. So kudos to the sheer hard work and compassion that teachers bring to their work every single day, to their life, which is at school or at the educational institution of any sort every single day. So that is the beauty of being a teacher. And I think it is the love that children give back in so many ways, and their parents too, that keeps us going. So that's what being a teacher is all about, and it stays. It's a bottomless wealth that stays. But at the same time, a teacher is a co-agent in the whole learning journey, and that's the fun of it. Never stop being a learner, and only then can you continue being a teacher.
That is true. Kanak ji, please, your closing thoughts on for all our teachers watching this.
So I would have done a +1 if we were on a WhatsApp chat to both the comments that were done said right now. But adding on, I think we all believe that empathy, empowerment, excitement, engagement, emotion, excellence are all interrelated when you're talking about education. And I think I would like to tell the teachers that continue believing in all of this. Please do look at what kind of impact you want to create, you can create. People who believe that they can make the world better actually go ahead and do it. People who believe that they can change the world actually change it. So believe it, that you can change the world. I believe that I can change the world, and I'm sure you believe as well. And look at the impact. And just one small, very personal thing, make sustainability on top of your agenda if it isn't already, because we do not have a planet B. Let's just start focusing. Elon Musk, I'm really sorry if you're watching this, but as of now, we don't have a planet B, and I really hope that we make sustainability on top of our agenda. Have a great celebration on Teachers' Day, and thank you so much for having us here.
I mean, this discussion, I really did not want it to end, but we're short of time. We're all on time crunch. It has been such a wonderful time hosting all of you. And, three of you come with so much of experience that all that a person can actually just do is listen and, gain so much, learn so much from all of this. And we have surely come to a conclusion that kindness, empathy, compassion, things like emotion, things like soft skills are really important, especially for modern day teaching and modern day classrooms where we want to transform our classrooms, where we want to, elevate our classrooms. Just to inform our audiences as well, and you all as well, that aidbees does exactly the same thing with schools and students, where we take module-based kindness classes with the school students, and we teach them various values like diversity, like emotional intelligence, like language, like empathy. and all of it under the garb of kindness. And we wish a very happy Teachers' Day to every teacher out there who's making this happen, who's turning their classrooms into a kinder classrooms. And with this thought, I would like to thank everybody of you who participated in this. And thanks to our audience watching this. Keep watching aidbees. Do subscribe to the channel. Happy Teachers' Day.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Happy Teachers' Day to each and everyone.